Hello, no one is available to take your call. Please leave a message after the tone.
This was a good night. I'm here right now, right here at Belle Rive Country Club in Creve Coeur, Missouri, getting ready for the PGA tournament. You may ask, Mr. Goodnight, how you whacking your balls around in Creve Coeur? How you getting ready to compete in the PGA? And that's because I'm getting ready because I want to introduce to the world my new caddy here in Creve Coeur, Slapnuts.
Oh, yeah, I seen you golf earlier today. I mean... Yeah, hopefully you do well in the tournament. We got a lot of clubs for you, so...
got a lot of 9-irons and a lot of big clubs
that's
here.
Right,
here.
Only big ones allowed here.
Exactly,
right,
in Creve Coeur. Creve Coeur, small town, big men, you understand?
Right,
This goes, but it's a long tradition. A long tradition here in Creve Coeur.
Right.
A long tradition of big sticks.
You got to measure your club first when you enter, right?
That's right. I actually got everybody else in here because they knew me. And we are ready for the PGA, ain't we?
That's right. We're going to shoot well.
We're going to shoot well, and we are taking the golf world by storm.
That's right.
Now fix to start kicking ass, just like it said at the beginning of the program.
Man of the hour, tower of power, too sweet to be sour.
Sending your ass on the jabroni jet to the other side of the territory, brother.
The Alabama Hammer.
Nightmares on the best part of my day.
The goods from the woods.
Hot damn!
Welcome to the Goods from the Woods. My name is Rivers Langley.
I'm Pat Riley.
And I'm Joe Raines.
This episode, it's been on the list of deep dives for a long time, and Pat is well qualified to handle it.
Yeah.
This is something I'm not super. I mean, I watched the behind the music for this, but that's about as far as my knowledge goes.
And I think it's the same with Joe, right?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly thought they were Jamaican brothers, so I really missed the mark on this.
Well,
one.
this was these guys were the subject of the first VH1 Behind the Music.
Were they the first?
They were the absolute first.
I thought it was MC Hammer. I thought it was Tony Orlando and Dawn.
No, I thought it was originally the first one was MC Hammer, but in 1997, the show Behind the Music premiered in August, and the first subject of Behind the Music VH1, which had like about 230 episodes. Like this was the beginning of a long-running series, but the first one that they kind of shot it off with is going to be the subject of today's episode, and that's Milli Vanilli.
Girl, you know it's true. I love you. Yes, you know it's true.
I mean, they are pretty great.
I mean, Joe said it right when we walked in and we started telling you what the topic was going to be. You're like, oh, that was like the original Ashley Simpson. And that is the way that most people think of them, as the guys who were busted for lip syncing. But we'll get into that.
So Joe, you said that you didn't know much about Milli Vanilli. Rivers, were you aware of Milli Vanilli when they were in their heyday?
No,
1989, 1990?
I was 3 years old in 1989, so I wasn't... I think the first, really, contemporary anything I remember anyone talking about was someone... Jamie, whose name I'll never remember the last name, and Joey Pollard beating the shit out of each other over a hammer tape.
Okay.
I mean, that's valid. Like, if somebody's trying to steal your MC Hammer tape in the early 90s, blood's going to flow. That's just, there will be blood.
I remember there being fights over who was the first one to buy the hammer tape or whose hammer tape it was.
I mean, we all watched the MC Hammer cartoon. Nobody was above. Nobody was above the cartoon. I mean, and that's yet another reason you should never trust people in baggy pants.
I remember I was 5 or 6 years old when Milli Vanilli was in their heyday.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it when I was putting this episode together, or putting together the kind of sequence of this episode. What was the first pop music song that you remember hearing on the radio? That you distinctly remember hearing on the radio?
Does MTV count as radio?
Sure, yeah.
Girls Just Want to Have Fun, Cyndi Lauper, MTV.
Okay. And it's weird because it was past its release point, right? It came out in 1984.
Yeah, this would be 80. I was real little, so it'd be 80s, 88.
Okay.
88 MTV, which we weren't allowed to watch MTV anyway because my dad was a minister, so it was. It wouldn't even matter what the song was. It would just be that it was on and we were being naughty.
It would reflect poorly on the family.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Why are girls having fun? They should be, reading the good book.
What kind of fun are these girls having, Joseph?
And why is Lou Albano involved in it?
Why
Rivers,
does he have an undershirt?
Yeah, Rivers, what's the first pop music song that you remember hearing, like consciously hearing on the radio?
I mean, I obviously heard a lot of stuff via osmosis, but the one that I remember specifically, and I think I said this on the show, was riding around in the car with my dad, and the song "Interstate Love Song" by Stone Temple Pilots came on, and I remember turning to my dad and saying, "This is my favorite song now."
I'm genuinely shocked that anybody's first song would be Stone Temple Pilots. It's
the first memory I have of doing that. I'm sure, obviously I heard other songs on the radio, but that's the first one where they said the name of the song, they played the song, and halfway through it, I decided it's my favorite song now.
The first song that I consciously remember on the radio was either like that was a pop song, was either "Pour Some Sugar on Me" by Def Leppard or "I Want Your Sex" by George Michael.
Oh, God.
I remember those songs distinctly on the radio, being a kid in the back seat of our Pontiac. But I remember being a kid, like 5, 6 years old, and distinctly remembering Milli Vanilli songs like on the radio because they were everywhere.
Right.
They had 5 singles.
Wow.
5 singles. 4 of them hit number 1 on the U.S. charts, and the 5th one hit number 4.
Wow, I didn't register any of that.
Yeah, so this, like, Milli Vanilli is quite possibly, for a time period between 1988 and 1990, they were the biggest musical act in the world, perhaps, right? They were in that sort of rarefied air with, like, Madonna and Michael Jackson and other, a few other people like that. Like, Milli Vanilli was really high up. But, yeah, we don't really kind of remember Milli Vanilli, or we know it as the
I remember them more as a punchline than the actual.
Yeah.
The actual music I don't so much remember, but I just remember for like 3 solid years, every punchline was like, and Milli Vanilli.
The story is rich.
Okay.
And let's begin
I'm so
with
excited.
the saga of Milli Vanilli.
Okay.
And we are going to start all the way in 1974. So there was a German record producer by the name of Frank Farian. And Frank Farian, kind of a weird-looking guy. Like, he's a German guy, kind of has this weird poofy hair, like really strange-looking guy. And he decided to put together a musical act, right? So he was a producer that was doing this sort of musical act thing, and he was singing himself. But he knew that he wasn't going to be somebody that would sell a lot of records. He didn't have a face for pop music.
Okay,
right?
I got to look this guy up.
He's a very peculiar looking guy. Like he, I don't know, if you were to kind of put together like a movie where you're like, oh, this guy was a disco record producer. Like Frank Farian is the guy.
Totally. He looks like a cracked out David Cassidy.
Yeah, and he has like blonde hair. He's a very like peculiar looking guy, and especially he doesn't have a face for making these kind of disco funk albums.
He's got a face for radio for sure.
So
one of his records, and we'll put this up on our Twitter. We're at The Goods Pod. Wunderbar, Frank Farian, which means wonderful Frank Farian. Mädchen so wild wie der Wind und das Meer, which is ladies go wild in the wind and the sea.
Yeah, sure.
On all surf and turf. He's got it everywhere.
Just take a lady to Red Lobster and they go wild. Yeah.
He's got some genuine Gollum qualities. Like his face is slanted to the left.
Yeah. So Frank Farian produces these disco funk albums, and he realizes that Frank Farian couldn't go on stage and do these disco funk songs. So he needed to find a band to do his songs. So what he found was he met a woman named Maisie Williams, who's from Montserrat, the island of Montserrat in the Caribbean, and she introduces.
It's what is
Beach
it?
Boys fame.
I was about to say the Montserrat mystique.
Yeah. Well, Maisie Williams introduces Frank Farian to her friend, a DJ and exotic dancer named Bobby Farrell.
I thought you were going to say Bobby Farron, and I was like, no, Bobby, way.
Please don't bring him into this.
Bobby Farrell. And he also met, later on, a couple of Jamaican women living in Germany named Marcia Barrett and Liz Mitchell. And he said, okay, they have the look for the band that I'm trying to put together. And he did kind of these vocal tests, and he noticed that Marcia Barrett and Liz Mitchell had great voices for backing vocals. Maisie Williams didn't have a particularly good voice, but she was a very good-looking woman who had a great stage presence, good fashion, all that sort of thing. And he noticed that Bobby Farrell, in his mind, couldn't carry a note to save his life.
Yeah.
But Bobby Farrell danced really well. And I mean, the guy was a former exotic dancer, right?
Yeah.
And he had this crazy look in his eye. So he decided, I'm going to put together a band called Boney M.
Oh, shit. Boney M?
Yeah. And Boney M was going to be, if you bought a Boney M record,
Boney M fucking rules.
Yeah, Barsha Barrett and Liz Mitchell would be singing on it. But Bobby Farrell on stage would be lip syncing the vocals by Frank Farian.
What?
Wait a second.
You're blowing my fucking mind.
He's making these people sing, like lip sync to him singing.
Yeah, so basically Bobby Farrell would sing live on occasion, right? But more often than not, when you bought a Boney M album, it would have Bobby Farrell probably in like his shirt off, maybe in a thong or something like that.
Yeah, he was awesome. My favorite song of theirs is called Daddy Cool.
Daddy Cool. That was their first single.
Yeah.
Frank Farian created the song Daddy Cool, and he casted Boney M after the fact.
There's a video that we'll throw up on our Twitter. I'll try to find it now of them doing Daddy Cool, and I didn't know any of this.
Yes.
I thought they were
turns
real
out
bands.
you love Bobby Farian and don't care for what's his face at all.
Yeah, I know. This is mind blowing.
Yeah, and they had a bunch of songs, Ma Baker, a bunch of other reggae songs, but Bobby Farrell was essentially on stage. He would do the song, he would sing occasionally, but for all intents and purposes, on the record, Bobby Farrell was actually Frank Farian.
Wow.
And Boney M sold 80 million records.
God, so he was already rich as fuck.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They actually sold more records than Bob Marley, Tupac Shakur,
Jesus,
Kiss, Aretha Franklin, Nirvana, Tim McGraw, The Doors, a bunch of other big bands.
She's crazy like a fool.
If you could cast a lead singer of a disco band,
had me fooled.
Yeah, Bobby Farrell would be the guy.
To this very moment.
Yeah, so the records, if you bought a Boney M record, it was Frank Farian who was actually doing the male vocals. And what he did was he sang in a very low tone, and he would manipulate the pitches in order to make it come off that he didn't sound like, a German guy.
I wonder how much of disco is because of shitty Germans.
Well, we had a previous episode, and a lot of Europeans were.
I was going to say, check out our David Hasselhoff episode for more information on that.
I feel like if we could keep these damn Europeans from taking American music jobs, we wouldn't get all this disco madness. Am I right?
Yeah.
Am I right?
And the lip sync thing was actually relatively common operating procedure for a lot of European dance music, especially in Italy and in Germany.
Oh, okay.
So, Boney M was like one of the first to follow that template. So they would do a lot of studio groups, right, where it would be this like master producer that would make a record. And then he's like, oh, I have to sell this. I have to go on the TV shows and stuff like that. And I can't go on, Popcorn and do my version of this particular song. So they would cast lead singers, right? So Dan Harrow they essentially cast a Italian model.
Yeah.
To be the guy that lip synced all the songs when they would go on.
Can I do this for my stand up? I feel like that's what's holding me back, because I don't have a gorgeous European doing my jokes.
Or Baltimora, the song Tarzan Boy.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's another instance of that.
Yeah.
Right? Where they would basically get somebody who was aesthetically pleasing, right, to cover up for basically a wiry little producer.
We're going to assume everything's fake from now on.
I mean, this was something that was happening in Europe. So, like, concurrently with Milli Vanilli, groups like Snap, I Got the Power and Rhythm is a Dancer and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They had somebody sing, and then they would get a model to basically be in the music video and act as if they were the singer of it.
What about the Pass the Dutchie on the left-hand side? Is that fake? Is
No, they were a child reggae group.
Yeah, musical youth.
Musical youth, man.
It's a cooking pot.
Yeah. But there was another instance of it with Martha Wash of the Weather Girls. It's Raining Men.
Yeah, It's Raining Men.
She sang like that song. Like the Weather Girls were a group that initially was called 2 Tons of Fun.
Isn't Paul Schaefer the one who wrote the music?
Yeah,
and all that?
yeah. But she sang a bunch of studio tracks, and the studio tracks came out under the names CNC Music Factory and Black Box, and they would get a model to do the voice of Martha Wash.
Like in the music video, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's CNC Music Factory. That's a hot song, too.
Yeah. So
wait,
this is
which one is I know that one, right?
Everybody dance
now. That's right.
Yeah,
it was playing at the grocery store every day, and I realized every time I've ever heard that song, I've been sure it's skipping, and someone needs to do something else about it. Like they say, everybody dance now like 20 times in a row, and you're just like, it's broken. Then you realize, oh no, that's just how this song goes, and it gets me every time.
Basically, large portions of jock jams followed this template. Yeah. But so Frank Farian, after Boney M, and he made lots of money off of it. And also one of the big things was that he engaged in these kind of relatively unscrupulous means of underpaying his musicians. So example, Bobby Farrell really wanted to push Frank Farian to be like, hey, can I actually sing?
Yeah.
Can I actually sing? I'm tired of being only the live guy who actually want to sing on the
so I was going to ask, like, they did whole tours as Boney M, right?
Yeah, and he would sing on stage, but he'd be dancing around so much, so there'd be a decent amount of lip sync because he's dancing around.
Right.
And sometimes he would do
fucking disappointed. It doesn't sound like the record at all.
Yeah. So well, I mean, it's even with Boney M, it's not like a thing where the voice is something where it's like Whitney Houston or listening to Seal or something like that.
It's a guy with a cool afro.
The meanest cat. That's basically.
Well, it's a guy with an afro going like the beginning of Daddy Cool where he goes, "She's crazy like a daisy."
Yeah.
It's fucking great.
Let me tell you the story of Ma Baker. But so basically,
it's the guy with the German accent.
So Bobby Farrell was originally from Aruba.
Yeah.
So
Americans don't know what accents are. We're just like, oh yeah, he's from the Caribbean. That sounds like Germany. Yeah. All right, sure.
So basically, when Bobby Farrell raised the stink, Frank Farian fired Bobby Farrell and replaced him with somebody else. Right, shit. And he basically gave him no rights to the music whatsoever. Right?
Yeah.
So essentially, Bobby Farrell was an employee, and once he raised the stink, he was 86 and replaced with somebody else. And Frank Farian made millions and millions and millions of dollars off of Boney M.
Oh,
right?
I'm sure.
They were humongous. And what he ended up doing was he became the audio guru of Europe. And a lot of people would go into his studio because he had like the state-of-the-art studio and record things. So the song I Just Called to Say I Love You by Stevie Wonder was recorded in Frank Farian's studio.
Which, by the way, my mom has as her ringtone. And every time her phone rings, she literally points at the phone and goes, huh? You get it? I just called to say, I love you.
But so Frank Farian also had a number of bands that he kind of constructed. So he produced like Meatloaf's kind of lesser known After Bad Out of Hell albums.
Hell yeah.
Oh yeah.
Was it the Would Do Anything for Love? Is that a
No, but that's on Bat too.
That's
so everything
Bat, yeah.
between the Bats was essentially
so the things you would never want to hear in your entire life.
Like the pre-Bat Out of Hell 2, but not quite Dead Ringer. You know, that's.
I would actually respect Stevie Wonder a whole lot more if it wasn't him singing on I Just Called to Say.
So one of the notable bands that he actually produced is this group called the Far Corporation, which was a super group that consisted of a number of members of a number of bands, including Toto and a British progressive rock band that had the most pretentious name ever, Barclay James Harvest.
Okay, what?
What? Wait, what?
The group was called Far Corporate, but there was a band called Barclay James Harvest.
All right.
So it's just like, you think Jethro Tull is a ridiculous enough name? Try Barclay James Harvest.
He's having a harvest, and it's our friend Barclay J.
But they did a cover of Stairway to Heaven that actually charted higher than the original Stairway to Heaven.
I'm sorry. Is this like Weezer's Africa? Is this?
Yeah, because the thing was that Stairway to Heaven by Led Zeppelin wasn't released as a proper
single.
Oh. Yeah, so technically, the Far Corporation's Stairway to Heaven actually performed better on the charts than the original. And the funny thing is that it is one of the most absurd songs that you'll ever hear. They're like Far Corporation's version of Stairway to Heaven. It's like, it starts out where it sounds like Stairway to Heaven, like just a little bit tinny, but it sounds like Stairway to Heaven. But instead of that like guitar breakdown, it turns into this weird disco breakdown. But it's like, it's one of the most bizarre songs.
Oh, there's the In the Air Tonight drum.
Yeah, it has
electric
that
drums and a synthesizer.
Yeah,
Cool.
so it's basically a turducken of like of Stairway to Heaven, but all the 80s tropes, like dance
Oh, wait,
music.
listen. It sounds like the soundtrack to Bloodsport.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like,
Like
it's
the song
basically like
played,
got Stan Bush elements. It has like Phil Collins. So he's getting all this money from the Far Corporation thing. It hit number 8 in Britain. It charted in the United States. It had some radio airplay. So Frank Farian decided to revisit Boney M and that template for his next project.
Okay.
That he thought would take over the world. Enter Fabrice Fab Morvan and Rob Pilatus.
Okay.
Now, Fabrice Morvan, he was French. He was from Paris.
No, really?
Yeah.
Fabrice?
And, yeah.
Fabrice?
And, yeah, Fab Morvan. And Rob Pilatus was the son of a U.S. serviceman in Germany and a German woman. And he was put up for adoption and raised by a German family.
Okay.
Fab and Rob met when they were 18 years old at a Munich nightclub. And basically what Rob and Fab did was that they were like professional club kids almost, right?
Okay.
So they modeled a lot because the guys from Milli Vanilli, good looking dudes.
Yeah.
I mean, they're like two, like, the perfect bone structure.
Like male models.
Yeah, ripped to shreds. And they also would do this thing where they would have a dance show.
Okay.
Like, so at discos in Germany, he would go to a disco and they would say, hey, let's have this dance show. And for 25 minutes, they would put on this like massive dance show that people would like, the DJ would spin and they would dance, right?
Yeah.
So they were like professional club dancers. And Rob wanted to be a musician, so did Fab. Rob actually had his first brush with kind of musical fame as a backup singer for a group called Wind that performed in the 1987 Eurovision Song Contest. So he didn't sing on the song, but he played a backup singer for their performance at the Eurovision Song Contest.
So he worked his way up to being the fake lead singer. He was a fake backup singer, then he slowly made the climb to be the lead fake singer.
So he pretended to play like an instrument and
you
would
gotta
sing.
get your 10,000 hours, you guys.
Yeah, that's right. And they finished second at the Eurovision Song Contest.
Wow.
So this was like a bit, like the Eurovision Song Contest is huge, and to finish second is like an incredible accolade.
Right.
So Rob and Fab decided to put together a little R&B funk type group, and they would sing in German, or they would sing like, I don't know if they would sing in German because Fab's German was a little bit shaky. But
do we have any audio?
No, there's no audio
German
that exists
funk?
of this. Yeah, but who they did play with was a number of people who they made their living as the studio musicians for one Frank Farian.
Oh shit. Okay.
So they decided they were like, hey, we can hook you up with Frank. We'll introduce you to Frank. And they had some demos and they wanted to like basically say, hey, Frank, can you produce us? Can you make us a star?
Right.
At the same time, Frank Farian was recording music with a collection of singers who had great voices, and a rapper who had great voices, but they didn't look like pop stars. Like one of them was like 45 years old. Like
Was it Jay-Z? It was Jay-Z, wasn't it? It was Jay-Z.
Well, the singers were
But it was Jay-Z now, like jet ski Jay-Z.
Jay-Z.
Have you seen him on the jet ski?
I have not seen him on a jet ski.
You know what? It's totally unrelated. I'm going to throw it up on the Twitter because it's Jay-Z on a jet ski is one of the funniest things the internet has ever
met Jay-Z
given us.
one time, actually.
Really?
Yeah, it was. I was at a retro jersey store in Atlanta in 2002, a place called Distant Replays, and I was going there to buy a Montreal Expos shirt, and the guy that ran the store was like, he was talking to me and my friends. He's like, if you're going to stay here and buy something, stay. If you're not going to buy something, leave. Somebody's coming in. And these two, this van came up, and then one of those almost like
van?
Hummer. like Hummer-looking Mercedes Benzes. I forget what they're called.
What, the Sprinter vans?
No, he's talking about the Safari ones where it's
the ones that look like a Land Rover.
The retro,
G-Wagon.
G-Wagon, yeah. G-Wagon and a Sprinter pulled up, and out of the G-Wagon came Jay-Z, and then in the van was all of his crew, and Jay-Z walks in.
He can't even be bothered to ride with his crew? Jesus Christ.
And,
Why have
he had
a crew?
He had a big crew of people, and there was this really awkward thing where it's just me and Jay-Z standing next to each other silent as we're flipping through racks. And I just like nod at him like, hey, what's up? Like I'm like, what do I have to say to Jay-Z?
Yeah.
But he's a big dude. Like I'm 6'3".
Jay-Z?
Yeah, and he was taller than I was. Either that or he had like a presence that was taller than me.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'll say this.
Rightfully so.
The Pulitzer is probably going to go to ProPublica for publishing the child detention center photos. But let me just submit, Jay-Z on a jet ski is one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
Well, he's got the helmet, so he's learning how to do that.
He looks like some's grandpa on his way to church.
I know.
Is he wearing a suit and tie on there?
It's very awkward.
He's
wearing a big dog shirt underneath that.
He's got 99 problems, and all of them are jet ski related.
So the two singers were Brad Howell and Johnny Davis. And the rapper was named Charles Shaw. Now, I don't know if he's related to the guy that makes Tupac Chuck.
I was thinking, that sounds
related
familiar.
to George Bernard Shaw.
But they were doing a cover. They were recording a cover of a song called Girl You Know It's True by a group named Newmark.
Wow, that wasn't even an original fake.
And Newmark was led by a guy by the name of, I believe it's Mark Lyle, who is now the president of Def Jam Records.
Sure.
I've
heard of Mark Lyle.
Father of Love It Lyle. Very close to Love It Lyle.
But Newmark's had a song called Girl You Know It's True, and Frank Farian decided to do a version of Girl You Know It's True.
Okay.
With these three guys that you couldn't put them on a record cover. So... Like you could,
I'm just imagining the Addams Family.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like it's like
cousin thing.
Yeah.
Like they look like school teachers. These guys look like they were school teachers, but with like some cool threads.
That's such a good conversation to have too. Like we cut this record, we're gonna be famous. Listen, guys, like you sing well, but I just can't put you on the cover of the record because no one will buy it because you're hideous.
So for doing their parts in Girl You Know It's True, they were paid. Charles Shaw was paid $6,000.
Okay.
I mean, that's not bad.
He was claimed $6,000 for doing the rapping part.
How much does that in like 85 money?
I don't know what it is, but that's all he made.
Yeah. Considering how many records that fucking sold, that's not a lot. But
so
hindsight, it's bad. But at the time, man, $6,000.
Somebody was like, "Give me 10 G's right now." Fucking anything I would do.
right.
It's like that Gerard Carmichael joke where he's like, I'm not saying that I'm broke, but I'm at that stage where $35 could change everything. That's like one of my favorite Gerard jokes.
So in 1985 money, $6,000 is about $13,000.
Yeah.
13,000.
So $13,000 just for doing this the rap that's basically the half of what Girl You Know It's True is.
I think that's fucking fair in 1980 something though, because let's just call it 15 grand. Somebody's gonna pay you 15 grand to go rap on something before rap was even like really a viable
and
thing.
That's one of the big things about Milli Vanilli was that rap was like. It was like popular with like Run DMC and stuff like that, but Girl You Know It's True came out before MC Hammer, came out before Vanilla Ice became popular.
What was it in relationship to that Blondie song?
It was after.
Oh, Rapture, yeah. But Rapture, I believe, is the first ever appearance of rap on the charts.
So I imagine if I'm understanding this correctly, so you're saying Milli Vanilli was like the first mainstream rap thing on it. So I would.
Well, there was like Run DMC and the Fat Boys
But this was like you're saying the first like mall rap.
The first mall rap. The first
I imagine this would be like the shit every rapper was like praying would go like get destroyed or whatever.
Yeah, it's like that was the first time rap became pop music. Where basically pop music annexed rap.
So they had zero chance of not getting found out, basically.
But yeah, Charles Shaw got a flat rate of $13,000 in today's money to do this rap part. That's it. Deal over. At least according to Charles Shaw and Fab in an interview a couple interviews that I read, but one that he said, it was $6,000. These guys come in, they do some vocal tests. Frank Farian looks at them and he's like, these guys cannot sing. But damn, these guys look good and they can dance and they have like great fashion. They look good. I mean, they look fantastic. And he signed them to a 3-album deal for an advance of $1,000.
Okay.
And then occasionally they would pay them like a salary. You know, they would basically kind of say, here, we're going to give you some money. It's really recoupable debt that they were going to have to pay back later. But it was presented very much in the way in which a lot of first album deals worked, especially at that time, is that people would get money, but they found out later on that they actually owed it to the record company based upon, what they sold or what have you. Right?
Yeah, I feel like the plot of almost every behind the music is what you just said. It's like, we're going to give you a lot of money. You're rich now. And it's like, oh, by the way, you owe us for everything.
But this is like $1,000. And these guys were broke. I mean, they were doing these modeling jobs. They were like doing these dance gigs at discos. But essentially they were living in the projects. Like they were living in public housing in Munich. They were roommates. And so they were getting this money. And they would use it to get like their braids and to get cool clothes, things like that. And one day, Frank Farian springs on Rob, who speaks German, that he has an idea that that contract we signed you to, you're not going to be singing, you're going to be lip syncing. Rob explodes. He's like, I'm not doing this. This is bullshit. I'm not doing this. He tells Fab, he translates it to Fab in French, and he's like, this is ludicrous. This is what they want us to do.
Well, because they're musicians.
Yeah, they want to be musicians,
yeah,
right?
Of course.
Ludicrous.
Yeah. And so they walk out, right? And they contact Frank Farian later on, and Frank Farian basically says, you signed this record deal with my production company, right?
Yeah.
You can get out of this contract. You owe me 3 albums. You can get out of this contract, but you have to pay me back every dime of what we paid you in recoupable debt.
Yeah.
Which amounted to about roughly $10,000, according to Fabrice Morvan. So they were like, you know what? We'll cut our losses. We'll do this one song that's already recorded. We'll do the act, and we'll just leave, right? Not realizing they've signed a 3-album deal.
Yeah,
Right?
how do you do 3 albums if you're not the one singing or writing it? Like, how are you, like, you're contractually to do an album that you're not going to do because I'm doing it, but, like, you can't, that's like an unhonorable contract. You couldn't take that to court.
So, I mean, I guess it's almost like they would think of it as, like, almost like the dude from the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones that just skanked. Like, you're a part of the band Milli Vanilli, right? You are technically a part of Milli Vanilli. You get credit as
like
the singers on the record.
The guys in the background of Public Enemy that just do like marching.
Yeah, the S1 dubs.
The formation
or,
guys.
Professor Griff occasionally would say things, but like Professor Griff. Or,
he would definitely occasionally say things like Jews cause all the problems.
Well, that was in interviews.
That's in interviews, not rapping. But the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones guy is awesome because the voice you hear and like recognizes the worst lead singer of all time, that's after he took years of voice lessons.
So in 1988,
and he looks like Dana Gould, by the way, if you've ever noticed.
But I love.
Are you talking about Dickie Barrett?
The Never Had to Knock on Wood. Yeah, he looks like Dana Gould.
Whenever they would play it on the radio in Birmingham, like the Birmingham DJ would always be like, funny story, I remember before he had the voice lessons. If you think this is bad, you should have heard him then. Mighty Mighty Boss Tones in there.
Well, they had an amazing version of Detroit Rock City with that like whiskey cigarette voice. It sounds like amazing. So in 1988, the song Girl You Know It's True comes out. Frank Farian's production company has a deal with BMG Records, and later they sign an American record deal with Arista Records, which is headed by Clive Davis, who was the king of the record industry at that time. He was the guy that was responsible for discovering previously Janis Joplin, a number of other musicians, but his big project at the time, he was the guy that launched Whitney Houston into the stratosphere.
Yeah, and then later, way after this, Alicia Keys.
Alicia Keys.
Alicia Keys. Been thinking about Alicia Keys.
He was, Babyface, all these people like that were
he
wrapped
got
up
Babyface. That's a big one.
Yeah, dude.
So they released the song Girl You Know It's True, which was a mega smash.
Yeah.
Like, it was big in Europe. It came to the United States and it hit number 1 on the on the Billboard charts. And it was a club hit. It was a crossover from the club to pop radio hit. It was a pop radio hit. It was immense.
Dude, the guy with the headless bass guitar fucking owns.
Keith Yan?
Yeah.
So I didn't see many critical responses to this, even though critics weren't a big fan of it. The public was a huge fan of it. And one member of this public was one Stone Cold Steve Austin.
What?
Yeah. Who said, quote,
I like it when they bash their chests together.
This was from his an episode of his podcast where he was interviewing during an interview. Dude, when Milli Vanilli had Girl You Know It's True, I was blaring that motherfucker on the radio. I thought those two guys were cool as shit. I know about the whole lip syncing or whatever, but man, that was some good shit.
I gotta say, like one of just the mental images that brings me so much joy, like in Happy Gilmore when he says, you have to find your happy place.
Yeah.
My happy place is just the thought of Stone Cold listening to different music.
Yeah.
Like for instance, when he said that the first Boston album was the favorite album of all time.
Yeah.
I just imagine him with his Chris Elliott hair, driving a Jeep Wrangler down the roads, going to some shitty wrestling gig and listening to fucking Smokin'! Smokin'!
Driving to Dothan, Alabama.
You can see him like in his truck doing the Macarena with beer in his hand.
No, there's one
She
episode.
wants me. She can't have me.
Oh, hell no.
My name is Victorino. Boyfriend's name is Victorino. But no, there was one episode where he was talking to Kevin Nash, and he was like, "Remember, you had that Honda CR. What was the sports car?
CRX.
Yeah, you had that Honda CRX, and we would drive to towns, and man, we would listen to that Janet Jackson Control album. We had that tape, and we were blaring that motherfucker. We listened to that so much, we ruined the damn tape."
Or was it the Spider? It was probably the Spider.
But he loved him some Milli Vanilli.
That's amazing.
These guys were cool as shit. So they get the Stone Cold approval. Song's a massive hit, right?
Yeah.
So the guys were just like,
and why wouldn't it be? They're technically blazers, but really, let's just call it what it is. They're wearing triangles.
Yeah,
the shoulder pads on these fucking outfits.
Yeah, the shoulder pads were huge.
And these are some good-looking dudes that could dance, and they have style. I mean, they're doing that Terrence Trent D'Arby look,
Yeah.
I mean, they look.
Also, Janet Jackson too.
Yeah.
She also wore the same outfit in some of her songs.
They look tremendous.
Yeah.
So at this point, they realize, okay, this is a mega hit. We're just going to jump off the ship. But Frank Farian's like, not so fast. You got a 3-album deal.
Oh, wait, what do you mean jump off the ship? Like
they were just like, we have this single. We're going to quit.
Oh,
we don't want to do this lip syncing thing anymore.
Right.
At least according to an interview with Fabrice Morvan.
Okay.
Fab. But according to Fab, Frank Farian's like, oh, no. I got all these songs, and you all look good, and y'all had a #1 hit.
Yeah.
You're going to be lip syncing a whole catalog of albums, songs for 3 albums.
Yeah.
So the next song that came out was "Don't Forget My Number."
They're still just in a room bumping chess. It's the same video.
But they have different outfits.
Yeah, they have different outfits.
He's got the Guns N' Roses headband going there.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, man, yeah.
On the headless bass.
Yeah,
did they
keep
film this on
on,
the
dude.
same fucking day?
Yeah, they did.
Probably.
More or less.
I mean, in the 90s, I feel like everything was a set for something else. The first episode of In Living Single was filmed in the Family Matters house.
But Fab was the rapper and Rob was the singer. That was essentially the dynamic of it.
No, they weren't.
No, but the dynamic
they're wearing
that was
yoga
being
pants, though. They are wearing yoga pants.
But purported.
Oh, this whole fashion is like coming back. Man.
But purported.
What is in the 90s? It was just like everybody wanted to look like they just got done bicycling.
Yeah, everybody wanted everyone else to look at their balls.
Yeah.
Like, hey, check out the shape of my nuts.
Yeah, and that song hit #1.
Jesus.
So the next thing that came about basically was the Club MTV tour.
Okay.
There was a show called Club MTV that was originally hosted by Kevin Seal, who was the nerdiest guy to ever. This guy was like nerdier than Matt Pinfield. He was nerdier than anybody that was ever a VJ. He was the nerdiest VJ.
Who was the old guy when they first started?
JJ Jackson.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Is he nerdier than him?
He was nerdier than JJ Jackson.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, he was nerdy as hell. I mean, he looked like he could be on the Kids in the Hall cast. He kind of had that look. And it was taken over by Downtown Julie Brown. It was like kind of an American Bandstand style show.
Yeah.
Right, where people would be dancing and they would play like became like the grind.
Yeah, I remember the grind.
But this was like their biggest show. Like it was one of their first actual shows where it wasn't music videos. And they had a tour. They had a multi-city tour. And the tour was Paula Abdul,
hell yeah,
Information Society, Tone Loc, Milli Vanilli, and the headliners were Was Not Was.
Whoa, Walk the Dinosaur.
Coming off of Walk the Dinosaur.
Fuck yes. Great song.
So
Straight Up's legit.
Oh, that's a great song.
It's a great song.
Even though it sounds like it's one of those songs where like the vocals you can't really tell what she's saying.
I think I got my first like boner to Abdul.
Paul Abdul.
Yeah,
I think most men of a certain age.
But
Paul Abdul.
So they have the tour, and at one stop in Bristol, Connecticut, on July 21st, 1989, the playback track skipped for 2 minutes.
2 minutes?
A performance of Girl, You Know It's True.
There's just nobody behind the board?
That's commitment, though, where they just keep doing the same move.
No, so it's like it basically freezed on Girl, You Know It's, 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 Girl, You Know
That sound of that skipping tape from the Behind the Music episode is burned into my fucking brain from the late 90s because they would play it and then it would just cut to I don't know.
It was
which
Rob
one.
that ran to the back. So the reason why Rob ran to the back, Fab was telling the story in an interview on this YouTube channel, Vlad TV. What happened was that since he was the rapper, he was just dancing around and stuff.
Right.
Since Rob was the singer, he had to maintain the charade of saying, Girl, You Know It's, Girl, You Know It's, over and over again.
Yeah.
And he just got tired and he ran to the back. He was like, what's going on here?
Right.
You know?
Right.
And they unstuck the playback track. And they continued on with the show.
Yeah.
Now, the Behind the Music basically acted as if this was the straw
end.
that broke the camel's back.
Yeah.
It was not.
Yeah, I was going to say, when did Blame It on the Rain come out?
Because the thing was that they had a number of other singles to come later on that were really successful, and people saw it as this is common operating procedure. Right.
Also, there's no like YouTube or there's no internet then, so like if that shit happens there, it takes a long time to filter.
I mean, Arsenio made fun of them, like he ethered them over this, right?
Okay.
But Arsenio was kind of one of the cool late night host at the time, right? He was the one that like Johnny Carson would not be talking. This is Milli Vanilli, you know?
Right.
But it was normal. It was common operating procedure because everybody kind of gathered that this is normal. It's almost like American Bandstand. Nobody sang on American Bandstand.
Yeah.
Nobody sang on Soul Train
or Ed Sullivan. Either.
Yeah.
I think almost all TV shows nobody sang on.
Yeah, and Michael Jackson, when he debuted the Moonwalk, when he had Billie Jean at Motown 25th anniversary, he was lip syncing.
Well, and the other thing that is, and I'm sure we'll probably get into this aspect of it, is like these guys are dancing, so there's a large amount of physicality on stage. So it's very similar to how, like, if you see Britney Spears at her shows in Vegas, or if you've ever seen Beyonce, like people who have
Janet Jackson,
anybody who has a lot of dancing to do, it's very difficult to maintain your voice and to dance your ass off.
It's a thing nobody
like that.
wanted to admit, but it was common operating.
And don't like some rappers do that because they can't say what they did on tape and like in public.
Yeah, there's certain rappers that do that too. I mean, this is common operating procedure, but the recording industry, and they would do this at live shows, and the recording industry wanted to tamper that down because it kind of affected the legitimacy of the shows, right? They were afraid that people would it was almost like pro wrestling. Everybody knew it was kind of a work.
Right.
The live performances sometimes, especially for dance pop acts.
Yeah.
But some people realized that it went further than that. So, for example, Beth McCarthy Miller, who was an executive producer at MTV, noticed during the first interview that they had with MTV, they had poor English skills.
Right.
I love
and the idea that it's like they were kind of like these guys sing and it's like perfectly enunciated English.
Right.
But English is like for Rob his third language, Fab his second, maybe his third language because he lived in Germany, and they had a poor command of the English language, right?
Yeah.
Some people could do that. Like, there's certain K-pop bands or in Japan.
Through the power of song, our English is perfect.
Yeah.
Phoenix comes to mind.
Yeah.
Because if you listen to Phoenix, their lyrics don't make any fucking sense, but they sound very very American.
But another person that noticed that there might be a rat was their bodyguard, professional wrestler and current Lucha Underground host Vampiro.
What?
Who purported
Vampiro was a fucking bodyguard?
He was a bodyguard for Milli Vanilli.
Wow.
During this time, yeah. And he claimed that he was introduced to them. He noticed that one guy was only speaking in French and one guy was speaking in German, and noticed that before a show that they were reading their song sheets in English, and then they performed in perfect English, and he realized, quote, "It was a work, brother." This was a fucking work, brother. You know,
Vampiro on the case.
Yeah. There's photos of him, and Vampiro looks hilarious with he kind of has like Max Headroom hair at the time. But he claims that he took his when he wrestled, he did dreadlocks, and he said that he borrowed those from his time with Milli Vanilli.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But also there were other people that were complicit as well. So Frank Farian obviously knew.
How do you think you're going to get away with that though when you're just like very German and then like
Frank Farian had it down under control. He basically had a system of separating the various entities, and people in the recording industry didn't want to admit it. It was an open secret in the recording industry all the way up to Clive Davis, who Clive Davis knew, like he didn't acknowledge it, but he knew that Rob and Fab were not singing Milli Vanilli, right? That they weren't the singers in Milli Vanilli. They were merely the performers. He denied this fact after the fact, right? But he had to have known, right?
Yeah.
Because according to both Rob and Fab, the entire time they were like, we want to sing, we want to sing, we want to sing. And that Clive Davis was actually putting the screws to Frank Farian, because Frank Farian's production company was signed to Arista. It wasn't Rob and Fab, but it was the production company that was signed to Arista Records.
Oh, okay. So they were just like working under to them. They were like a subset.
Yeah. So essentially Clive Davis was like, you need to have these guys, because he noticed that this could completely blow up in everyone's face.
No, really?
And that, so the first kind of chink in the armor was when our friend Charles Shaw, that got paid $13,000, noticed, hey, I rapped on one of the biggest singles of 1989, and I only made $13,000. Right?
I will say, by the way, every time you say his name, I am just imagining a bottle of Charles Shaw wine with a little wig on it and a little tie.
That's what he used his money for.
Yeah.
And he
bought a real shitty vineyard.
He did an interview with the New York Newsday where he basically spilled the beans and said,
he spilled the wine.
Yeah.
Did they find him or did he find them? I love the idea of like this beat reporter, like, I'm going to get to the bottom of this Milli Vanilli thing.
Because he knew that this was
like Deep Throat, like he dropped like an unmarked brown envelope under a door. Yeah, like Milli Vanilli's fake.
Yeah. Trench coats and sunglasses in the parking deck.
So the wine has been spilled. Dig that pearl. But Charles Shaw had an interview with New York Newsday. He approached them and said, hey, I got a scoop for you. I am really the guy that did the rapping part of Girl, You Know It's True. And by the way, Milli Vanilli aren't Rob and Fab aren't the singers of Milli Vanilli. Frank Farian finds out about this and reaches a settlement with Charles Shaw, where Charles Shaw denies every claim that he made, and in return he was paid $155,000.
Deal done.
Yeah, deal was done. Like after the story came out, like they had the songs "Blame It on the Rain" and "Girl, I'm Gonna Miss You" come out after the Club MTV thing, and they hit #1, right?
Yeah.
So nobody was really shook by this, this performance thing. And even after the interview in New York Newsday, where people like Arsenio talked about it, it was lampooned on in Living Color.
Milli Vanilli commercial, take one.
Hello, we are Milli Vanilli. You know, a lot of people don't understand the enormous success of Milli Vanilli.
And neither do we. But we are here today to tell you that you too can be Milli Vanilli with lots of positive energy and our new do-it-yourself at home Milli Vanilli kit.
That is right. In just 10 minutes. Count them 5, 10. You didn't think I could do that.
But despite that, their next single, All or Nothing, hit #4 on the charts. So people didn't mind, right? So this is when the doo-doo hits the fan. February 21st, 1990, the Grammys.
Dark day.
Oh, that's right, because they won the Grammy. Oh,
they were going up against, I don't remember it correctly, but I remember Soul to Soul, Nana Cherry, and the Indigo Girls. and another band. I forgot who it was, but they were going up for Best New Artist, and
which we should talk about at some point. We should do a whole thing about the Grammys. But the thing about the Best New Artist is that
it's cursed.
It is cursed.
Yeah. So they won the Best New Artist Grammy.
Yep.
They didn't think they were going to win, and they were like, "Oh shit, what are we going to say?"
Yeah.
Like, and Fab almost said that at that point he considered the idea of admitting on stage during the Grammys that we didn't sing this. We want to give the awards to Brad Hall, Johnny Davis, and Charles Shaw, and that they should get the award, right? They entertained it. But what Rob ended up doing was saying...
we want to say thank you very much, but we want to say there are a lot of artists here in this room. There are a lot of artists outside in the world who can achieve the same award that we achieved today. And it's an award for all artists in the world. Thank you very much.
So it was a very humble speech. But 1 month later, they were interviewed by Time magazine, where apparently in the interview, the reporter claimed that Rob Pilatus said that Milli Vanilli was, quote, the new Elvis, and that they contributed more to music than Bob Dylan, Paul McCartney, and Mick Jagger.
See, this is what makes me think they totally were like not wanting to quit. Like at some point they started smelling their own doo-doo and just like, you know what? It's not me singing, but it could be.
Now Fab has a different story than this. He said that they were manipulated. That according to Fab in the interview on Vlad TV, they showed up to the show massively fucked up.
Okay, yeah.
Because they were surrounded by wine, women, and drugs, right? And they were partaking because they were pop stars. And that, given the fact that Rob and Fab, their English wasn't particularly great, it was tough for them to communicate nuance. And that what they claimed was that Rob said that to their fans, they were the new Elvis. And to their fans, they contributed more to music than these individuals. Talking about their fame, their kind of Beatlemania type fame, and kind of remarking on this.
I didn't say we were greater than Jesus. I didn't say, but just said we were as popular.
It's weird how like there's differences between languages because like in English it sounds like I'm the greatest ever, but in German it's like everyone's great.
Yeah. But according to Fab, after the story came out, they demanded to Time magazine to get the tapes to vindicate themselves because it created a large amount of flack. People were out for their heads. They already had the thing with the Grammys. They were vulnerable for something wrong to happen. And they wanted the tapes to say, no, we didn't say this. And according to Fab, Time magazine would not give them the tapes of the interview to vindicate them.
Huh.
Yeah, or that the tapes didn't exist.
Wow.
So by winning the Grammy, according to Rob, Fab, and Frank Farian, the Grammy became a chip for control, and they started butting heads.
Right.
Because Rob and Fab said, we have the Grammy, we have the power, right?
Yeah, why didn't they just threaten to like say something and get their 110 grand?
Right. So they basically were like...
blackmail him.
Well, no, what they were trying to do was they were trying to convince Frank Farian and do the power play, and during that time, engage in a world tour. Because they weren't making money off the records, but they were making money off of the tours.
Yeah.
Right? So they could tour all over the place, and they were doing this massive world tour where they're going to do the United States, Europe, Asia, the Middle East, all over the globe, Australia, and they were going to make a ton of money. Right?
Yeah, I don't believe any of this. We were manipulated shit. They're making money off the tours. They're part of it. These guys are shameful.
Frank Farian said... Once they won the Grammy, to the effect of he said that they couldn't be controlled. They couldn't be controlled. They knew that they had an important bargaining chip at their disposal, and they bumped heads for the better part of 6 months after this. Where basically Frank Farian was getting pressure from both Rob and Fab, who were essentially on strike. They wanted to sing. Clive Davis putting the screws to Frank Farian, saying, "Let these guys sing," and Frank Farian's project there where he's just like, if I have these guys sing, this is going to ruin the system.
Right.
So in December 1990, right before the tour was about to commence, Frank Farian fired Rob and Fab from Milli Vanilli and announced to the world that they didn't sing on a single song.
Oh.
That it was all an act.
Oh, shit. So
They fucked themselves
They
so hard.
They should have.
They should have shut their mouth, done the tour,
Now,
pocketed the
Frank
money.
Farian-
No,
and blackmailed his ass.
exactly. I'm saying they should have threatened to just like ruin.
Well, but then
his
they
whole
don't make
system.
the road money, which they get, if they're smart, they do half the road to get at least some money. Then put the screws to him to like just give us money. We'll
he
keep
didn't
doing
want
whatever.
them to tour. He wanted them to make a record, right?
Yeah.
He was like, go back in the studio. And they're like, no, we want to tour. And he's like, no, go back. And so it became this sort of tug of war.
Yeah.
And essentially Frank Farian let go of the rope.
Okay.
According to Frank Farian, Rob and Fab basically, said they didn't make much money from. Essentially, what they had was they made a small allowance from Frank Farian's production company, right? But they weren't paid really for the albums, right? All the money was going to Frank Farian's the production company because he wrote the songs, he produced the songs, and owned the rights to them. But according to Farian, he actually paid these guys $2 million, and that they were gung-ho on this, right? And that he paid everyone involved in it, and that Rob was essentially strong-arming Frank Farian to make more money. That's Farian's claim. So the cat's been let out of the bag. Massive scandal. So on November 20th, 1990, at Ocean Way Studio in Hollywood, they have a press conference where Rob and Fab go up there, and the first thing they do is, as they're sitting down, Fab grabs the microphone and does the rap from Girl You Know It's True, and nails it.
I'm in love with you, girl, cause you're on my mind, and you're the one I think about most every time, and when you crack a smile, and everything you do.
The only difference is there's a slight, French accent in his voice. But it basically gave off the impression that these guys, at least Fab, Rob couldn't sing, and that was the problem. That Fab could have actually did the rap tracks. And so they sat
Poor
down.
Fabrice through all of this.
Yeah, Fab, when Fab did the line, the endless group of, the massive group of press that were there actually started applauding.
Yeah.
When he nailed the opening bars of Girl You Know It's True.
Oh my God.
They proceeded to be buffeted with a bunch of questions. They showed them, they brought their singing coach that basically showed a clip of them doing the parts, and Fab nails it. Rob doesn't quite nail it, right? But that's okay. It showed that they could possibly do it, and their singing coach basically said, these guys are capable of singing. I don't know what's going on. They were putting this situation. And they also offered to give back the Grammy.
Yeah, that's what
they offered to do was they
benevolent.
wanted to give the Grammy to the real Milli Vanilli guys.
Yeah.
Right. The two, them and the two, I forget the names of the...
Are Rob and Fabrice, well, I guess obviously not, but up until the point, one point, are Rob and Fabrice talking? Because it sounds to me like Rob's kind of a shitty person, but Fabrice is just hanging out, not knowing anything but French.
They're tight. They're thick as thieves at this point, right?
Yeah. Okay.
But after the event...
They've bonded, I think.
Yeah. So, and then they symbolically give it away. Afterwards, the National Association of Recording Arts and Sciences demanded to get the Grammy back, right?
That's what I've seen. I remember that from the Behind the Music, where they're sitting at the press conference and they're still wearing the fantastic triangle-shaped jackets from
know
the
your
music
gimmick,
video.
dude. Yeah,
They've never changed clothes.
It's the only thing they ever made was these jackets, so they just wear them everywhere because it's all they own.
So basically, everybody involved became part of a scandal, but because they were the face of it, they became the patsies.
Right, yeah,
They
of course.
became the subject of everybody's ridicule, everybody's, in living color.
They're making fun of me. All I ever wanted was to be a purple triangle in a made of
Arsenio
polyester.
Hall.
A singing triangle.
Everybody was making fun of Milli Vanilli.
All I wanted to do was to be a singing
And the
triangle,
Milli
Father.
Vanilli hate extended beyond the recording media. It went past late night televition.
I am
It
a
went
triangular peg in a square hole.
A triangle is supposed to be flat. It is supposed to be sharp and flat at the same time. All of my German heritage tells me that it is supposed to be sharp and flat when I sing.
So it extended into state houses across the country. In New Hampshire, they passed House Bill 1430 that required by law that concert promoters disclose when a musical performer
What the fuck was happening in the 80s and 90s where they're doing all this legislation about fucking music?
This was
1991, 1992. They came out in 1990.
This is around the time when they did the parental advisory too. Were people in Congress just like sitting around angry about music?
See, that's what I was thinking. Like 1991 is like a fucked up time.
Well, the recording industry wants the government to get out of their business,
Yeah.
right? That's what they want. They want autonomy.
Is this
the
also
label
Tipper Gore's thing?
No,
as
so the
well?
label was basically a consolation where they were like, okay, get out of our business. We don't want to be legislated. We'll make the sticker. Now just go away.
Yeah.
Right? With this, I think the recording industry kind of threw Rob and Fab under the bus because Farian had nothing to lose. He was already rich, right?
Yeah.
Rob and Fab went under the bus because they were the face of it, right? They were associated with it. They were the public image of Milli Vanilli, and also they wanted to maintain their legitimacy because of the fact that not only in live performance lip syncing was common, right, but also the fact that there were certain artists that were successful where lip syncing was an open secret.
Yeah.
You know? And then on top of that, there was a sort of thing where, you know, the recording industry wants to maintain its level of autonomy. The same thing with their payola scandals and stuff like that. So the multiple states wanted these things to basically ban
music and dancing. We want to ban music and dancing.
Ban lip syncing like Milli Vanilli. There were anti-Milli Vanilli laws put up because they saw it as against the public interest, like deceptive.
Anti-Milli Vanilli laws.
In one county in the United States, I couldn't find which one. Criminal charges were put up against Rob Pilatus and Fabrice Morvan. In 1991,
and then Kevin Bacon had to come to town and save everybody.
The best one was in 1991 in Chicago, Illinois. There was a settlement for a lawsuit against Arista Records, which for 6 months, people that bought the CD, single, or tape of any Milli Vanilli recording, if they had the copy and the receipt, could get a small refund. So $3 for a CD, $1 for a single, and $2 for a tape, and they would get a coupon for a future Arista release.
Oh, wow. So that was from Arista Records.
Arista Records was watching The Jerk and like, we got to get out in front of this. Let's just give everyone an 82-cent check.
That's almost like the version of that now where they have whole websites that are just devoted to getting money from class action lawsuits.
Yeah.
Like a friend of mine, they have that drink that's called like, you know, Naked.
There's always one. I used to work at the check cashing place, and every day it was just a litany of people with like 83-cent checks who
from
were like,
class action suits.
Yeah, man, just for less shoes, man. They were ripping people off. Cash my $3 check.
It's all Matthew Lesko's fault.
Yeah, no,
class action lawsuits. Free money.
My friend back in Alabama, I think she got like $300 because there was a class action lawsuits against those protein shakes called Naked, where it's like it's made out of almonds and shit, and like some of them weren't actually organic.
Oh,
like it was
shocking.
it was this like the stupidest thing, but she ended up getting like a few $100 off of those. But I would love to be cruising the that and whatever the 1991 equivalent of that would be to see. Oh, I could get some money from Milli Vanilli.
Yeah, am I $4 for my cassette?
Right, get a coupon for a single for Blame It on the Rain.
There was only 6 months window, so if you have a Milli Vanilli record,
I can't get my refund.
You can't get your
anymore?
refund.
Oh
No.
man!
Arista Records claimed that they lost $25 million on this lawsuit, which is kind of suspect.
There's no fucking who has that much free time.
It depends on how much you can claim a lot of like lawyer fees because that's like how much time I spent.
Basically, Rob and Fab burned through their money because they were paying for lawyer fees because they were getting like lawsuits. According to Fab, there were lawsuits that were out where people were suing them for emotional distress. Like parents were suing Rob and Fab for emotional distress because their kids had freaked out and had PTSD from Rob and Fab not actually being Milli Vanilli.
It's like the fucking and people who like got pissed that that Pandora wasn't real after Avatar came out. It's those same people who had depression because they couldn't visit the mystical land of Pandora.
Now the thing that's crazy is that if auto-tuned existed at the time,
right?
This wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, I was gonna say, man. Yeah, no one can sing now.
Yeah, and that's Fab's argument that it's just like if you look at the degree of auto-tune now, right? Like auto-tune is essentially created a place where people are.
Except for me because I rap so well.
Yeah. Well, you know what's funny is like I was just thinking about this. Now the inverse of that happened about 2 years ago, where they had one of those things on NPR has this series, Tiny Desk Concerts, where they'll have people come in. They had one with T-Pain, and
great.
he didn't use auto-tune, and literally the whole internet went like, oh shit, he can actually sing really good.
He did a version of Buy You a Drink, and it was like...
It was beautiful.
Let's get drunk and forget what we did. I'm buy you a drink. Then I'ma take you home with me. Money in the bank. Oh.
I remember listening to an interview where he got big on the auto-tune thing because of cell phone ringtones, where he said that it was a way of selling like the cell phone ringtones. The auto-tune effect really went well out of a like Nokia brick phone.
Right, yeah, of course.
So Frank Farian has all this Milli Vanilli source material. So he decides to put out an album called The Real Milli Vanilli, called The Moment of Truth.
Does he put the Addams Family on the front cover?
Yeah, he does. It's the two the two female lead singers and Chucky Shaw and
who is again just an anthropomorphic bottle of wine. And then I'm imagining the
Johnny
two female
Davis and Brad Howell.
The two female singers are just two pumpkins.
They were I believe they were twins actually. But the album bombed except in Austria, where it was a number 2 hit.
Wow.
Everything bad with music happens in Austria and Germany.
Falco. So Rob and Fab wanted to sing, and they decided, you know what, we're going to spend this. And they were messed up by the whole situation. Fab didn't leave the house. Rob went deeper and deeper into drug addiction. And they decided, let's give this a go. Right? We did all these vocal lessons. We really want to sing. People responded well to it. They did I think it was a Trident gum commercial where they made fun of themselves. Like, we can make this work. So Rob and Fab put out an album called Rob and Fab.
Okay.
Right? So they're now Rob and Fab. And they had a single called We Can Get It On. They decided to do a New Jack Swing style like record.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. And for a month, Arsenio Hall, who always made fun of Rob and Fab, made fun of Milli Vanilli, for a month had a counter, basically. 30 days until Rob and Fab. 29 days till Rob and Fab. Because it became this thing. And they were going to perform live. And they came on the Arsenio Hall show and basically did a mea culpa, where it's just like, we apologize, this is the situation, blah, blah, blah. And they came out, mesh shirts, looking good, shredded up. Like, they worked mesh into the equation now. They got rid of, like, the triangle look. They were going straight. They're going mesh, I think, heavy mesh. And they performed.
I am no longer a triangle. I'm now a fishing net.
And Arsenio
We
Hall.
were very influenced by Right Side Fred's arm toast actually. They are not triangles. They are squishy like Flash.
And Arsenio, to his credit, right? Arsenio made fun of these guys. Got so many, monologue jokes out of them. He created a situation where it's like, you know what? I want to make things right. I want to make it so that these guys who he felt got jobbed have the best opportunity to really just launch themselves off as Rob and Fab and show how great they were.
Yeah. Now, so he's going to bring on Milli Vanilli.
Yeah, so the thing was that the Rob and Fab album had a couple of issues, right? Rob was so heavily addicted that he couldn't really record much. He was so messed up on drugs. And so it was basically a Fab. It was essentially a Fab album.
Yeah.
Fab did most of the work.
Yeah.
Also, they signed to a small record company called Taj. Right? Taj Records had poor printing capacity and lost the ability to effectively print records. So there were only 2,000.
They only had one job.
Yeah, and they only sold 2,000 copies of Rob and Fab because after
Rob was snorting all the records.
Yeah, they did a mall tour, right? They did like a tour of malls and stuff like that. They were going from town to town, doing a whistle stop tour in order to make things right. And the problem was that after the media was like, these guys are actually legit. This is a feel-good story. Let's get behind this sort of thing. And when they performed on Arsenio, Fab killed it.
Yeah.
Fab killed it. They both had the dancing good. They had a good show. I mean, they really just blew it out of the water. But the thing was that when people were coming to find copies of the album, because there was such poor distribution and poor printing capacity, nobody could buy the Rob and Fab album.
Oh man!
So these guys basically it went so well that they signed a record contract with Taj, and it didn't turn out well. But this song is kind of a banger. Rob.
Oh, this is great.
Ladies. But I mean, it hits all the.
This is the music video, though. This isn't.
Yeah.
You would understand me why I do beg when I know that you really.
I mean, he's not a terrible singer, I guess. I mean, yeah, he is.
He has like a slight kind of Bobby Brown effect.
I was going to say he has a slight Michael Jackson effect a little bit.
Yeah.
He's obviously not as good a singer as Michael, but yeah, man, it's not bad.
I like the early 90s where the idea in every music video was like, I hang out at my sparsely decorated apartment with my girlfriend who's never not in lingerie.
I live in a wet parking deck.
I live in a warehouse.
I live in a warehouse.
And then little known, like hipsters all over Williamsburg are living in that set.
Well, that's why. That's why millennials live in shitty lofts, is because we grew up watching this.
But yeah, I mean, it's
Invest.
I mean, it's like very much of the time.
Vest with no undershirt.
Like it has
friend of the show, Matthew Curdy, wore that studded vest too 4th of July. So,
but it's like it's mostly Fab singing. Rob kind of.
Fabrice is a wonderful friend.
Yeah, but it has all the tropes. Like, you know, it's like black and white. It's in a warehouse. There's dancing. There's scantily clad women.
Yeah.
Rob every once in a while comes in and he like does kickboxing against a heavy bag. You know, it's like all the tropes, right?
Oh, wow. That was Rob in the background.
Yeah. I mean, even though Rob isn't really doing anything, that doesn't
it's a
matter.
whole package.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
You could easily get this over.
Yeah, and it's great. But the thing was that people didn't have the capacity.
Oh, a Tesla coil.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
They got the rotating bed where he's just holding her breast behind her for no reason.
Yeah. So this is all like of the time, but there was a great response to it, and they didn't have the ability to get everything to market.
Yeah.
So after this, Rob fell deeper into drug addiction. Fab adjusted fine, but this actually created a gulf that drove them apart. You know, they were before great friends, working their way through this struggle. The album bombed.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm fine for
way.
Brees. I'm like, why the hell do I have this drug addict around? I sing, I rap, I dance. He just stands in the background and like kickboxes. Like, why do I need this guy?
I think it's probably, it's probably more like, we got this far together.
Yeah.
And we kind of we were forced into a situation that they didn't necessarily anticipate.
Yeah.
So they kind of, they probably bonded very much over that.
I know when I hang out with...
I do like that there's an equal opportunity of nudity.
I like that they're sitting back to back nude on a rotating bed, because when you're hanging out with your best friend and you both get naked and sit back to back on a spinny bed.
This is a nudist theme video, basically. Like the theme, nudism. That's what.
That's probably Rob's one contribution to the music video is like, I want to be naked next to you on a spinning bed.
So Rob felt, Fab. They basically were brothers. Kind of in a sense, and they drifted apart. I mean, when Joe said that, were they brothers? I mean, they were essentially kind of, in some sense, brothers.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I mean, they look related. Like, I mean, they're different shades, but like they look.
They're
like,
both triangles.
Yeah, they're both triangles.
Yeah, one's a red triangle, the other's a navy triangle. Yeah.
So Fab adjusted pretty well. He took music lessons. He really got into storytelling, public speaking. He actually
has he done the moth?
Yes, he has.
Yeah,
he
You're
has.
Fucking shit.
Yeah. You know
I'm
what?
gonna walk the fuck home.
It's weird you said that. I remember listening to that. I was delivering pizzas in Auburn in like 2010 or something, and listened to that episode of The Moth with him.
And it went well for Fab.
And he was hilarious too. Yeah, he's a good storyteller.
If you watch him in an interview, I mean, he's a really super charming guy. That when you watch him, you're just like, hey, this guy's really cool. You know? In 1998, he got a job as a DJ on Kiss FM, which is the big pop music station in LA.
Yep.
And he performed at their 1999 Wango Tango, which I think is kind of weird that it was named, but it was
for a Ted Nugent song.
Yeah, the Kiss FM.
Yeah, that is a weird jump. Easy listening to the Nuge.
Yeah.
But it's in 1999 he performed at their annual super concert at Dodger Stadium in front of 50,000 people. Yeah, so he had his moment, and he recorded his first album in 2003. Rob didn't take it so well. Rob spiraled deeper into, a cycle of addiction and rehabs. In 1996, he went to jail for 3 months.
For what?
For attempted robbery and I think it was like assault, vandalism, and attempted robbery or something like that.
I'm just imagining him in the triangle outfit,
robbing people.
But he's got
all he has
he's got
left.
he's got a balaclava over his head. He's got a mask, but he's still got the. And they were like, "Well, what does he look like?" Well, you're like, "Well, it was obviously one of the guys from Milli Vanilli."
Yeah. Like he keeps the jacket because that's all he has left.
Yeah.
And he can't let go of it.
He was stomping really fast.
Yeah. He's got the jacket and then a barrel for pants.
You won't give the triangle your money. The triangle demands your money on time.
So in August 1997, they were the subject of the first episode of Behind the Music.
Wow.
And shortly thereafter, Frank Farian said, "Hey, I got a proposition for you."
What? What?
Let's put the band back together.
No shit.
And they were actually going to reunite and do an album called Back in an Attack. And they were recording it.
No, they were with them, with their actual
with them
voices?
singing, yeah. It was going to be the real...
Why do they keep inviting Rob back?
Well, no, because it was this happened right after the Behind the Music. There was like a groundswell of sympathy for Milli Vanilli.
Yeah.
And so what happened was they were recording it, and on April 2nd, 1998, Rob Pilatus overdosed in Germany at age 33.
Of what?
And died. Pills.
Oh, pills.
Pills and alcohol, yeah. Some believe that it was a suicide.
I remember them painting it in Behind the Music as if it was intentional.
Because he had suicide attempts. At one point, he had kind of a cry for help where he threatened to jump off a 9-story building, I believe in Miami. But according to Fab, what happened was that Rob was going to go to a rehab facility in India, paid for by Frank Farian.
Of course.
And Rob decided... You know what? I'm going to rehab. I'm going to have one last blast, basically. One more night of everything before I turn in my drugs card. And he partied too hard, and he passed away at age 33.
It makes you kind of wonder, like, maybe Farian did give him... If he's paying for like an all-included rehab in India, which is not close to Germany. I don't know if you have a map in front of you, listeners at home, but them two ain't close.
Yeah.
Well, it was a thing where, there was the groundswell, and I think Frank Farian felt a remorse.
Yeah,
he probably saw how it came off on the Behind the Music, and he was just like, you know what, I kind of seem like a real jerkball here. And the album was scrapped, and the tapes of it were destroyed after Rob's death.
Oh, man.
But Fabrice Morvan had an album that came out in 2003 called Love Revolution. He still performs around LA from time to time. He still tours, doing smaller projects. His sound, I guess, is more reggae influenced, because he was born in Paris, but his family's from Guadeloupe. And he grew up listening to, reggae and the music of the
Plus,
the
it's
West
all
Indies.
that German influence to get the reggae going,
Well, Boney M.
Right.
And he talked about how Boney M was his favorite band when he was growing up, and that Ma Baker, their song was like his jam.
Wow.
So it's kind of in the fates. Last story out of this, Frank Farian decided to make a Boney M musical, which was a big hit across Europe.
What?
So Frank Farian is living large. He actually recorded his, I believe in the 1990s at some point, he recorded his first record where it was a Frank Farian record. And it was a cover of, I believe, Ricky Don't Lose That Number by Steely Dan.
Yeah.
Oh, that's Steely Dan?
Yeah.
And
Ricky Don't
I thought that was Toto. Yeah. No, I'm thinking
let's
of...
see, who other...
Love Doesn't Always Come on Time. That's what I'm thinking of.
The other figures in this, Vampiro is now the host of the announcer for Lucha Underground. Stone Cold Steve Austin has a wildly popular podcast, a show called The Broken Skull. And, after listening to Milli Vanilli, it kind of inspired him to be Stone Cold. But the coda to this was in 2007. A screenwriter by the name of Jeff Nathanson wrote a screenplay based on the story of Milli Vanilli, and it was being optioned for a large period. It was in the kind of floating around Hollywood for a while. It was finally optioned by Brett Ratner.
Oh God!
And after the demise of Rat Pack and his loss of money, the $450 million in funding that he got from, I think, Sony, the project went into its demise.
What? Man,
Because
these
part of
guys
that-
cannot catch a fucking
and part
break,
of that
man.
$450 million was to fund the budget for the Milli Vanilli movie.
Yeah.
So the Milli Vanilli screenplay still exists out there. There is bound to be somebody that's going to pick it up and make the Milli Vanilli biopic that we all want and is going to win an
It's
Oscar.
going to go straight to the Dollar Theater.
We'll see.
I want to. I think if you get the right actors,
it could be great.
You know how you go to the theaters and they have now they have 8 options for ticketing where you can be in section RX10,
Right,
and it's
right.
$30 extra for a weird speaker. If you go to the Milli Vanilli movie at the Dollar Theaters, you get to sit next to Fabrice and he'll
just
tell you
every
this be
showing.
you're watching them eat a steak. And he'll be like, that was a really good fucking steak. It's just accurate.
they'll have a thing at Alamo Draft House where if you pay enough money, you get to lip sync all their parts. Yeah,
right.
But yeah, no, Milli Vanilli. I mean, I think the story of Milli Vanilli is really interesting because it shows how scandals work, and it kind of shows the recording industry, as you said. I mean, the story of this was the archetype for every story for behind the music. Where it was young kids just want to make music,
tricked
really
by a
dumb,
shyster,
don't know what getting a lawyer means. You know, they sign this thick contract.
Of course,
they're
a
put
penny on the dollar is a good deal. I'm going to sell 1 trillion records.
I mean,
a penny that's
they're
going
we want some cool threads and stuff. We want this $1,000. That's sweet.
Yeah.
We've been eating bologna blowout. We want this money, right? So and they got caught away by the fame. So I mean, the thing was that they reasonably, they were under in this trap, but also they could. And Fab points this out in interviews. He could have gotten off, right? There could have been ways to get off of the train, but they were really seduced by the fact that they were just everything. Where he was all the booze, all the clubs you could get into. You're a VIP. All the women, all the drugs. One of the ones he brought up was that he was just he was in a hotel and he just called a phone and they just brought up a bunch of fruit plates. And he was like, wow, all these fruit plates? This is awesome. So, they were seduced by it too, but
sex, drugs, rock and roll, and fruit plates.
Fruit plates, you know. Fab was all about the fruit plates.
And twins!
And twins! So yeah, man, Milli Vanilli, dude. I always found this story to be really, really fascinating, and
yeah, it was definitely one. I mean, it was obviously the first episode, but it's the one that they probably ran more than I feel like I saw Milli Vanilli and Dr. Dre. And those are the two that I saw many times.
Did they ever explain where Milli and Vanilli came from?
Milli Vanilli. So this one is up to debate. So one story is that Milli Vanilli, somebody that knew Frank Farian, went to Turkey and saw a sign that said Milli Vanilli.
Okay.
And apparently that means good energy in Turkish, Milli Vanilli. The other one, according to Fab, was they were a big fan of the band Screedy Politi, which was a British pop rock band of the early 80s, and they were trying to do a playoff of Screedy Politi. And
that's a
there
big
was
jump.
Yeah, and that they were going for and Fab said something that he really liked ice cream or something like that. Like the story was kind of weird. I think it's more plausible that Milli Vanilli was somebody who went to Turkey, saw a sign, and said,
Yeah,
Milli
that
Vanilli.
makes way more sense.
Yeah.
The other way sounds like Fabrice pre-gaming for a lawsuit where he's like, no, we totally had the idea because I like ice cream and we wanted to
like
be
Screedy
millionaires.
Politi.
So we were like millions and vanilla. Milli Vanilli, I'm
We're
a genius.
in it for the money and the ice cream, man. But I think, it sounds like a lawsuit thing where somebody from Turkey's like, wait a minute.
Yep.
That's my slogan. I'm Milli Vanilli.
Or it's just like Fabrice about the Sue Farian, and he's like, no, we came up with the name. The name's us, so that's more money.
Yeah, exactly. Where it's like some guy, it's like, no, the real Milli Vanilli is my kebab stand. Good energy. That's what it means.
Good energy.
Because
and
my food has positive energy.
Free soda with falafel.
And that's it, man. That's Milli Vanilli.
That's Milli Vanilli. If you guys, you can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/thegoodspod. We're on Twitter @thegoodspod. We'll have all of the good Milli Vanilli music videos and clips and all that good stuff.
And Vampiro looking like Dolph Lundgren.
Yeah. We're going to have a lot of fun stuff on our Twitter for this episode. So check us out there. Every episode ever, youtube.com/thegoodspod. Big shout out to our friend Richard Eden up there in the Klondike doing the hard work at thegoodspod.com. Pat, what should the folks do when they get to iTunes?
Rate, review, subscribe. Tell a friend. It shows the attitude of gratitude.
And if you don't have the attitude of gratitude, as Mr. Goodnight would say, fuck you. Yep. And we'll see you next week.
Look out for him on that PGA Championship.
Yeah, that's right.
Blame it on the rain that was falling. Blame it on the stars that didn't shine that night. Whatever you do, don't put the blame on you. Blame it on the rain, yeah. You can blame it on the rain.
The Goods from the Woods was mixed, edited, and distributed by me, Rivers Langley. You can find the show on Twitter @TheGoodsPod. Our theme song was composed by DJ Smiles. Check him out on Twitter @DJ Smiles.